Well, hey there. Welcome to Woodshop with Mr. Kern. I've got a couple vanities that I'm building. I thought it'd be a real good opportunity to talk about building face frames, drilling pocket holes, and doing assembly in a couple different ways. How I do them in my little shop and then how we do them at the school. So I hope you get something out of it. I hope you enjoy. Lots of times on most face frames, you're going to have two sides and then you're going to have a bunch of rails. And that's pretty simple. So if you cut all your stuff and you put it together, there you go. But on this one, it's got a couple different things. Number one, it's got a side, and then it's got rails, and then it's got this, we'll call it a mullion, I think that's what it's called, that has to fit in between these two. And so even though we have specific measurements on our plan, if we didn't sand this and get it to exactly 1.5 inches, you might cut all them to the exact numbers. But what you got to do before you actually put it together, and actually you need to do it before you drill your pocket holes in case you need to trim some, is you need to take this piece and line it up, and then take this piece and line it up and make sure they all equal out. Okay, so even if you have a number, say 24.5 on your plan, it might be a hair under that, or it could be a hair over that, depending on if these are exactly 1.5 inches. It's just something to think about. Also, just in the exact same way, I've got these little rails that go in between, to divide that into sections. And so basically this plus this plus this plus this plus this has to equal this. And so what I would do is basically the same way. I'm going to put all these together, and I'm going to butt this up flush and tight, so that's tight, and I'm going to butt this up tight to that, and butt this up tight to that, and when all these are butted up together, when I get down to this end, this should be flush, because it doesn't take much. It could take this just being a hair too long, these being a hair too wide, and then if you don't check it before you put your frame together, it's going to bow out, or it's not going to fit together right. So that's the other thing. Okay, this is what I used to drill pocket holes on in my shop. I really like it. It's not as fancy as the one we have at school, but it does a good job. It drills a clean hole. Basically, it's just manual. You pull this lever down, and it'll automatically kick on and whatever. And then you can adjust this hole down depending on your wood thickness. I'll just do a couple. So I've got some lines on my table where I know I need to put 1.5 inch piece. But basically, I don't know, can you see this? I want to be in about, about 3/8. That's where I kind of want the center of my two holes, somewhere in there. But I kind of have some lines on here, so I do need to adjust this. So on mine, I think I just move this up. It just threads in or out, so I can get my piece in there. Now I'm set. So I'm going to set that on my line, pull that down, set it over to my other line, and pull it down again. Give the old flipperooski. And that's going to be my two holes. I really love this thing. I love it. And I put this thing on kind of a sliding platform. So lots of times, if you see over here, I got a cabinet and I use pocket holes to attach the face frame. And so I'll be able to pull this out and take a big sheet along here and pocket hole, pocket hole, pocket hole. But I don't want it out in my way all the time. So then I can push it back out of the way. So I really like that. So I'm just going to pocket hole these things. I'm going to just show you another method for pocket holes. This right here, I would have this in my toolbox if I was anybody. Like even if, it's just so handy. I think this is about $40, and basically what it is a little jig that you can just clamp on. You just clamp that to your piece. It's got a little gauge in here, and so you can adjust this little stop collar. I have this set up to do 1/2 inch plywood, so you can adjust the stop. So one reason why I like it is I have it set up for a 1/2 inch, and it's way easier for me just to grab this and do a few 1/2 inch things than to have to reset up that whole machine for 1/2 inch. So that it's handy in that regard. But also, if you don't have $300 or $350 or whatever to spend on that, you can get by with this. Okay, so basically I just have my jig in place, and then I'm gonna, you know, just drill down to the collar, and it's that easy. You can do a lot of stuff just with this simple little jig. It's very handy to have. I use it, the other place I use it a lot is if I forget to drill holes, like I showed you that I use it to put holes in face frames, or I put holes in the side of cabinets to attach my face frame sometimes, and sometimes I forget to do that. I just forget all about it. And so this is a real handy way. Well, after my cabinet's already built, I can go ahead and add some holes in there to attach my face frame. So I would definitely look into this. Face frame here, it goes to a little vanity that I wanted to show you on our school equipment, just to familiarize you with it. So I've got it kind of laid out. I've got an 1¼ inch piece on the bottom, just because that's not typical, but that's what I need on this particular one. So I'm only going to put one hole in that. Normally I'd put 2, and 1½ inch we can get 2 in there. What you need to keep in mind is I only need to pocket screw the pieces that are going to get attached to something else. So I don't need to do the sides, because they're not going to get screwed to anything. Something's going to get screwed to it. So I'm going to go over to the old pocket hole machine, and we'll do these 3. So really all you're going to have to do is turn it on. And then when you step on this pedal down here, it's going to engage that blade. I've got a red mark right here that kind of tells you where this bit's going to come out at. Sort of tells you where the center of it is. So once again, you can write on your board. We're going to come in about 3/8 of an inch. Or you can just visualize that, but we're going to kind of line that up with that red mark, making sure that you're drilling in the bottom side, in the bad side. So I'm going to drill these, and then we'll talk about putting a face frame together. I need to mention is we're going to treat this like a drill press. And do you remember the safety margin on the drill press? 2 inches? That's right. Good job. So we're going to always keep our hands 2 inches away from where the action's happening over here. It's happened before where somebody, I don't know why, but they had their finger there when they stepped on that pedal and smashed their finger. That's not good. That's a lot of pressure. So don't, just be careful. Don't put your finger there. If you're not sure about it, just ask me. Okay, I'm going to talk about putting the face frame together, but I'm not actually going to put this one together because I want to show you how to put it together if you don't have one of these fancy tables. But basically, the way I like to do it, and the way I've found the most success, especially with students, is I like to build it from the side whenever I can. So this thing's gonna be this way, and then whoop, there it'll be. You get what I'm saying? So we'll call this the top. So I would start with the piece that's going to be your top. We're going to put glue on it. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and get that one screwed in. And once I have that done, I like to cut a spacer that tells me how far down the next one's going to be. And I like to do that instead of measuring, because I feel like I can be more accurate with that. And even if we cut the spacer wrong, it would be better for this board to get screwed on there a little bit wrong than to be wrong. I mean, it'd be better for it to be the same wrong on both ends than to be one's right and one's wrong. Now it's all cockeyed. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, obviously we want it to be right, but anyway, I like to use a spacer. So we screw the first one in, then we put our spacer in, and then we'd butt our next one up to that one, and we'd screw that in, and then we'd grab our bottom and screw that in. And then what I like to do is I like to go ahead and put glue on these, which I should mention that we're always going to glue them and screw them, because the glue is really That's really the holding thing. The screw's almost just like a clamp. And then we'll take this whole apparatus and we'll flip it over onto this side and then screw it in there. And we'll still use our spacer. We'll bring our spacer, you know, put it over there. You can do this where you butt everything up against this, and it's a good way to do it and make sure it stays square and everything. But I've just found, like, especially with students, maybe a board has a little bit of wood chip or something like that on the end, and so you butt it up and you don't realize that, and then stuff's not lining up. So my preference would be for you to butt it up, and then you can feel in there with your finger and make sure it's flush. And if we do a good job cutting on the miter saw, like our boards are square, it's going to suck itself down to be square. And we'll check it when we're done, but for the most part, we don't have any trouble keeping things square doing it this way. But I'm going to save this one to show you at my shop, and I'm going to do the other one because it's a little bit more complicated. And, you know, a nightstand or something like that, this is pretty comparable, what I just showed you. But if you're doing something like a dresser with 3 different sections and multiple drawers and everything, it's not that simple. And so that's why I want to show you on this other one. Okay, so this is the base frame that I showed you in my shop. And again, I like to be able to feel it and make sure it's flush. And so instead of starting at the bottom, which would be easiest, I've just had trouble with people not making sure that maybe there's a little glob of glue on there and they didn't notice, and now this isn't sitting flat. So we're actually going to set this up and work our way down a little bit, and we'll probably flip it. But so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out, I know I had one piece that was specifically for the bottom. That was this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm not going to glue it or anything. And then I'm going to use my 2 little middle pieces that were in my dividers, and their job is basically just going to be to hold this top piece up just to keep it from falling down. Okay, so now I can rest that on there, and now I can glue this and not have to worry about, you know, now I can get it perfect with my finger and make sure it's all fitting perfect. So, yep, that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue. Now this is going to be painted, so it's not the end of the world if glue squeezes out, but if we're staining something, we really don't want glue squeezing out on the inside corner. It's a real pain to sand. So I normally try and I don't put a ton of glue on it. I try and keep it concentrated towards the middle, or on this case, I'm going to get it towards the middle and the top, but I'm going to leave it, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to kind of leave it off the bottom. And I went ahead and put glue on both ends, so I'm going to be pretty efficient here. Okay, so I'm going to line this thing up, get it where I want it. I can bring this little guy over, and I'm going to kind of set it so it's halfway on this board and halfway on this board, and then it's just got a little lever, a little toggle switch. I'll probably have to move the camera and get a better shot of that here in a minute. Okay, once again, don't smash your finger. So I'm going to make sure that's level. I've got that clamped down, and now I'm going to put 2 screws in it. Now, depending on what kind of wood you're using, we might switch and use a fine. Oh, this thing, I don't have a bit in here. I'm just going to use I'll just use a regular drill for this. I'll try it. Now I guess it just makes the most sense to flip this thing around and to put the other side on. I suppose that would make the most sense. So I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. Give the old flipperoo. That's my top. This is the bottom. Get my spacers back in there. That's the wrong one. These 2 spacers in there. Put a little glue on this guy. Okay, So at this point, this thing's upside down and backwards. So it would flip up this way and be right side up. So this is actually the top. So I think my next move is going to be to put these dividers in where they go. I think I'm just going to use this as a spacer and get this thing screwed in. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue on it.
This will make it close up.
I'm going to butt that thing up tight. Bring this rascal over. Oh, it's got a little leak in it. Okay, now I'm going to move my spacer up to the top to make sure that thing's straight all the way up and down, and then do the top. Sometimes you'll find it's easier just to flip your whole thing over. It just depends on what you're doing, because it's hard to screw up sometimes. Okay. Now I'll do the same thing over here. I don't need that, I need this. Okay. So I got the dividers in. The last thing I need to do is I need to put my rails in, and then this one's actually going to have another rail there. So I'm going to take my 5-inch spacer again, put that guy on there, throw a little glue on this guy. Slap that baby in. Yeah, I got one more to do, and I think I'm gonna, it probably doesn't matter, but I'm gonna put my spacer in here instead of putting my spacer in there. Just, it takes out one more variable. I'm gonna give that guy the old flipperoo here. And then I'm pretty sure this spacer's right. And double check this. That's close enough. You know, it would be probably a little bit better if when I cut that spacer, if I just cut 2, I'd still only use 1 when I was actually doing the screw-in, but just to have 1 here that was close, so I knew that that was pretty straight, would be better, but I didn't do that. That doesn't mean you can't do that. Okay, that pretty much knocks that out. A couple things that we're going to mention that I didn't say. Number 1, we do use that air drill sometimes, and I don't know why I don't know why I didn't have a bit in it. If we don't use that, I do want you to make sure you use a drill and not an impact driver. Impact driver has so much power that it'll just drive that screw through and you won't feel anything. On a drill, you can actually feel the torque. You feel it torquing down, and so you know it's getting tight. Or we can set a clutch, which we'll do a lot of times. So if you set a clutch, it'll drill until it gets that tight, and then that clutch will set in so it doesn't over tighten it. The other thing is, especially on really hard woods like a hickory or something, but I just try and do it all the time. I always put the outside screw in first, so the one closest to the end, and then the inside. Now in here it doesn't matter, but when you're close to the end, I've just found I've had a lot better luck of not splitting this rail out, or the style out, if I put this one in first and then this one. It's not going to guarantee it doesn't split out. And if you start with this one and then do that one, it doesn't guarantee it won't. You know what I'm saying. But anyway, I've just had a lot better luck. So the last thing I'd do is I'd pull this thing off and I'd take it over and measure it corner to corner and make sure that it is square. And then if I need to, I might be able to tweak it. But I mean, that's the last thing. And then this guy's done. You could kind of wipe off your glue if you got some extra glue, but we'll sand all this. Okay, thanks. Guys, a couple more things I want to show you on face frames. Just in case you don't have that sweet face frame clamping table like we have at the school, which I don't yet in my shop. Eventually I am going to have one, and I might build one myself. That's kind of my plan right now, but metal prices are like 3 times higher than they normally are. But I've got a plan in my mind, and you'll see it. It'll be cool. Anyway, the most basic method is to use the clamp that you use with the little Kreg jig. And so I'll just show you one of those. I'm going to put a little glue on here. And then this isn't the easiest way to do it, because it's kind of a pain, because you have to have access to your, you got to let your stuff hang off the edge so that we can put this clamp on there. And what that clamp's going to do is just hold both pieces at the same time, so they're flush. I mean, it works. It's an effective way to do it. It's just not the handiest way to do it. So I'll just do one like that. Sure, I will. Got it. Okay. What I use in my shop right now, I've got this pretty sweet workbench, and I bought some of these little plates that work with this little clamp. It's got a little screw that slides in this little slot. And so that's how I build mine right now, which works. I mean, it does a trick. I'm just really looking forward to having that other deal. So I'll just throw this thing together with this system so you can see it. Clamp that baby down. I love it. Throw a couple screws in that. Now, did you hear that? That was my clutch. So I got it set, I think it's set on 7. This is soft maple. Well, most of it is. Some of it's hard, but that's just going to keep it from, hopefully keep it from stripping out, which it can do. Okay, like an alder, something like that. I think I'm going to throw this one on while I'm here. I think it'll be easier. So I got my 5-inch spacer. Throw that thing in. Throw my piece on here. Got a little heavy on the glue there. I'm just going to throw that on the other end for now. Alright, give that guy the old spinnerooski here. It's not bad. There's easier ways, which you've seen. But, you gotta do what you gotta do. I love it. And that's pretty much face frame stuff. I'm just going to measure this and make sure it's square. 49 and a long quarter. 49 and a long quarter, right on the monkey. Okay, good. Well, hopefully you learned something about face frames, pocket screws, all that business today. And you can apply it to your beautiful project. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.